I'm going to say that Ray and I didn't actually compare notes at all. That's absolutely true, isn't it? But I'm so glad that you went first, because it kind of lays the foundations in a way, and I don't need to kind of explain so much. But probably wondering why someone from a strangely named local community group that predominantly talks about rivers and the environment is talking about community and cohesion. Well, hopefully some of that will come through. I'm not about to tell you about rivers much. I'll happily do that if you like. I've got some literature here. I can talk to you about art, for example, because the rivers have got loads of fantastic art on them, and if you want quick interval, I'll go and get a copy. I do actually have copies here of the booklet that we helped get published during the year of the Lewisham Nature Man stag murals that can be found across the borough, including on the river. So hopefully some of this will chime. I am just going to chuck some stuff out there. Feel free to disagree or debate or whatever. When I was thinking about what to say, I actually didn't know. So I was thinking, what is community and cohesion meaning post-pandemic? And I know that it's not gone away, so I'm not pretending we've solved the COVID, let alone bird flu or anything else. We haven't. But I was thinking, this is not new. We've been dealing with lots of short-termism, lots of sticking plaster type approaches to things that kind of here today, gone tomorrow. They're the classic tick box, that's alive and well. It existed long before that. How can we break free from that? And as Ray said, how can we actually feel that we don't want to be apathetic? We all go up and down, don't we? And I had a bad morning this morning, to be perfectly honest, but then I got on with it, and it's fine. I assure you, I'm fine, okay? But, there's so much nonsense out there, it works against the good stuff, let's be honest. I totally get it if people don't think there's hope, or I totally get it if people don't think it's worth it. And then I'll talk to them about why I think it is and how you can do something about it. These photographs are incredibly random, but if you're wondering where this was, this is Blythe Hill Fields for their festival. So, community and cohesion. I realise I'm standing in front of the slide, so I might just wander. Can I detach this? Is that all right? Yeah. Community and cohesion. Some reflections on the state we're in. I'm going to talk about the state we're in, what we actually need. Okay, I'm not going to give too many examples. You can take it or leave it. You can probe me later on what I think. What I think the role of community is now. The clue is it hasn't really changed, but we need to be better at it. What I call our invincible role, I only thought about this on Saturday, so it's not really thought through, but that's fine. Go with it. And what others can do. By others, I mean those that do have the power or the influence. This is your archetypal community. People from Lee Green, which actually straddles the area, the forum, Lee Green Forum, who actually straddle Lewisham and Greenwich, so we really have got a problem. If you're not familiar with the Quaggy Waterways Action Group, it's a community group, we're all volunteers, we don't have offices, our office is the rivers or the river corridors. We're the group which has put, Ray had his influence on the world, we are the group that has put Lewisham and probably the rest of South East London on the global map for how to restore rivers in an urban setting. Okay. Predominantly the River Quaggy, but not only, the River Pool and the River Ravensbourne, because they're the three rivers in this borough, in this catchment. The company even said some nice things about us, so I don't know what they were thinking that day. So, first of all, community. We use the word a lot, but do we actually know what it means? What's the origin of the word community? It means together in trust. That's the definition, that's the kind of meaning of community. It means together in trust. I mean, think about that for a moment. We use this community. We're a community group. What does that mean? Some troublemakers who live around the corner, do-gooders. Together in trust, people acting together in trust. They don't necessarily trust everything about each other, but they've found a commonality of something that is trusting. We take people into the river, they have to trust us to want to do that. Yeah? We go into dark places in rivers as well. So the state we're in, what on earth is going on? How did we get here? Why does nothing work? Why does no one seem to actually do their job properly, least of all in central government? Sorry, I'm not going to get overly political, but I think you know what I mean. How to get things done when things aren't getting done, and what happens next. This is a photo that I took at Elephant and Castle, actually. These are all my own photos, so don't worry. Even this is my own photo. What do we have? This was Christmas Day a few years ago, where I'd obviously had too much fun that morning. If you see the leaflet, you'll see a duck on it. That's the connection to Quaggy. Okay, so I won't explain everything. Some of this is just going to wash over. Don't worry. If some of it catches, that's fine. Too much short-termism, poor governance, shifting blame, not taking responsibility. Lots of examples of that. You'd be here all night. Poor role models, leaders who are in positions of leadership but don't lead. They like the idea of being in charge, but they don't lead. Abuse of powers, misuse of public funds, false narratives, i.e. we don't have any money. I totally take Ray's point. You actually don't need a lot of money to achieve some things. It can be surprising. It helps. But actually, the argument there's no money is a bit of a nonsense. There's loads of money, it just happens to be in the wrong places. And whatever happened to building back greener or better? Still looking for it. This is a cartoon that did the rounds on Twitter. You know, this is normal, supposedly normal, polluting our way to oblivion. This was COVID, where actually some of that pollution stopped and we did nice things in testing times. And then we were promised this way forward. Well, I guess we're still inventing that, because it's not about what we're going to be given. We have to push for it, and we have to get on with it ourselves. Thinking about this, I was also reflecting on the past year, because actually I sensed about this time last year, and I might be wrong, but I definitely sensed we were planning the year, we were going to do loads of events in the spring, and we were trying to work with some organisations we hadn't worked with before, and we got to about Easter last year, and I got a funny feeling, and people weren't replying to my emails. Some others who you were kind of counting on, or individuals, it just went quiet, and a reticence set in. And I just kind of thought, this is odd. We had to completely change some plans last year. It's fine, we'll find another way around. Like water, we always find the way. But some people who you thought would have the wherewithal to kind of step up, just kind of step right back. People and organisations. Also, I think I've just noticed a broader trend of people liking the idea of stuff, but kind of, oh, that's nice to know, but I don't want to get too close to it type stuff. Hey, we've got busy lives, we spent years, several years doing Pilates on a computer rather than in the room, right? Well, not me, my people I know. And let's be honest, Ray's covered it already. Life was tough before the pandemic. I mean, don't talk about now. So those, I hate the expression, hard to reach groups. Well, they're not that hard to reach. You can find them if you want. But this kind of combination of people stepping back and the problem still persisting is a bit of a toxic combination. Anyway, so what do we need? We need some of these things, okay? And they're not going to happen tomorrow. They're not going to fall into our lap. But they are the same things we probably needed before the pandemic. I think the restoring faith in institutions is an interesting one. There's a really interesting research that, it was done before the pandemic, but it was into people's faith in institutions, which is, if you believe the headlines, has kind of been going down. But actually, there's some really interesting research that actually people's desire for institutions to be successful and effective has actually increased. But there might be levels of trust and realise, you didn't come quickly enough, or you didn't, let's not even talk about the police, but there's a gap between what people would like to happen, and they love effective institutions, but their experience of them, or the quick answer they give if a microphone is shoved under in their face, is to be negative. But actually, that can be turned around. And I think a lot of when I say institutions, I mean everything from an organisation, an official body, or maybe even a statutory agency. So we deal with the Environment Agency a lot. haven't been getting a great deal of press because of sewage in water, whatever. Sewage isn't the main problem in water, actually, it's agricultural pollution, but don't get me started. The BBC, it's an institution. Oh, everyone moves about the BBC. Well, hang on, actually, that's not true. It's just not true. But could it do better? Yeah. Do people have wanting it to do better? Yes, it is. Same with the water companies, actually. They really do get a bad press. But actually, the public evidence, until a couple of years ago, was that people wanted them to succeed because they had a relationship. So there's a relationship there to be improved. People have lost the link slightly. This isn't going to happen overnight, Paul. What are you talking about? I'm just laying the groundwork, okay? What we need more power and agency over ourselves. That sounds like a condensed thought, because it is. But I suppose what I'm saying is, we have more power than we perhaps imagine, and we undervalue that. And as soon as you start thinking you have no power, you really don't. And some of this is psychological. You have to kind of talk yourself, give yourself a slap and talk yourself into thinking. And it isn't positive thinking and all that. Well, it is, but I don't go through that kind of phase, if you like, burning candles or whatever. I don't know why I put this one in. I know, I was listening to the Matt Hancock on the radio, or the people talking about Matt Hancock. You remember him? Ministers have forgotten what ministering means. To minister to someone is to serve them. And you might help if you're a good administrator, but you're essentially serving, and it's a humble role. I think people have lost sight of that. That ties in with good governance. That can take all sorts of forms, but currently it seems very self-serving. And this is one I've had around for a long time. There's always seems to be a fast track for the bad stuff, and a slow track, and a bumpy track, an outside lane for the good stuff. I use this term quite a lot. Give us more of the good stuff, and I'll come to a bit more of that at the end. But why is that? Why is it so hard to get the things that most meet our needs, and so easy to get the bad things? And a terrible analogy is, why does a loaf of bread, and I'm not making points about food poverty, whatever, but why does a loaf of bread that's got arguably 50 ingredients in it, that is rubbish for you, costing less than a loaf of bread that's got 4 ingredients in it, and is good for you? Why is that? Okay, there's something not right there. Participatory grant making. Anyone come across this? It's a really interesting idea. But it takes many forms, but essentially it's a kind of form of devolution and trust. Give people who need the money to work out how to use it. Don't it's the tick box thing, isn't it? Or it's the rigours, or the kind of the borders here of broccoli, but you can't. Yeah, I trust you. Okay. Do you ever watch Dragon's Den? I haven't watched it in years, but one of the things they always said is, I'm not investing in your business, I'm investing in you. Okay, so if that's what entrepreneurs do, or investors do, well, why can't that work on a community level? Yeah? You have to have jumped through all the hoops to prove that you can do it before they decide that they don't want to fund you. Sorry, I'm being terribly negative, but I am going to be positive in a minute. I'm not being terrible. Well, investment in actions and imaginations of communities, because as Ray said, there's so much good stuff going on. Whether Lewisham is the greatest place for activism and whatever, I don't know. I know there's been an astonishing history, and I say that having spent quite a lot of time in Croydon. So, someone laughed, that was good. And there's more to Croydon than meets the eye, I can tell you. But yes, Lewisham is trying to catch up with Croydon in the skyscraper stakes. Right, so what now for communities post-pandemic? I don't know if anyone recognises this mural, but it is in Lewisham. Has anyone seen this? Yeah, it's Lady Wells it's the other side of the Ladywell station. What I mean by this is that, and this is about the transactional arrangement that I think operates between us as people who want to do stuff or think we're in a community group, together in trust, and those that we sometimes want to act for us and do the right things or make our lives easier. We should never expect that those people are leaders. So I do loads of work at government level or local government level, and I never go into a meeting or send an email or have a discussion with anyone on the basis I expect them to make things easy. My experience is that they usually don't. Yeah, they usually don't, and so I never go and assume they'll do the right thing. Okay, that's fine. They might be busy. They might have 100 things to do. Equally, we should never not expect them to do it. This is a transactional thing. I want you to do something. I'm not going to expect you to, but I'm not going to expect you to. But we shouldn't place bets or money on them doing it, because ultimately it still comes down to us to make the momentum and prove it. Yeah. And very often they'll do that anyway. They'll say, well, you go away and come tell me about this. And if you can jump this high, then I'll give you the money. If you can't, then go do more training, you know, that kind of thing. The point I'm getting at is that most changes happen because people had a rightful expectation that their leaders, in inverted commas, would do the right thing, but they didn't sit around waiting for that to happen. They bought the phone box, yeah, as it were. So they asked for change, but they didn't sit around. Okay, now you might say, well, that's bloody obvious. Well, we have to remind ourselves sometimes of these things. Yeah, there are loads of examples, but sometimes it's good to understand the little motivations that keep you going. I think one of the challenges we face, and I'm not suggesting you do a massive exercise as a group or an individual or community or a street or a whatever, a project, because we didn't ask consultants to come in and examine us and ask us to fill in questionnaires, but we just started to have a think, Quaggy Waterways Action Group, and I certainly thought about what is our own value and relevance. We've been around for 33 years, pretty successful, we've achieved things over time that have made a big difference, whether, hey, there's a park out here with a restored river in it, yeah? That wouldn't have happened if we hadn't done stuff further upstream. At Chimbrook Meadows, at Sutcliffe Park, we've got Ladywell Fields, we've got Central Lewisham now, there are other places. But what we did, we just gently and quietly reflected and reprised our role and said, what is it we're actually trying to do? Not, we need to do this number of stores, or we need to get this bit of concrete knocked out to the river, or we need to take some obstacles out of the river to get eels to move up through the river, because there are eels now in Lewisham, yeah? Yeah, there are now eels as far up as Manor Park, because the obstacles in the river have been taken out. And eels migrate up the Thames, and they used to migrate all the way up the rivers. If you don't believe me, we'll take you on a road, we'll show you some. Come in the river with us, we'll show you. But what we did is we need to start showing how things can be. Now, arguably, we've always done that as community activists or campaigners or whatever you call yourself. I don't like labels. Find your own label, use it yourself. We need to help people see that stuff is tangible and not distant. People are always being told about, in the long term, we'll get this right. Well, hang on. I've worked on climate change since mid-1980s, right? Okay. I know I look young, okay? But, okay. But and they always talk about the long term there. Well, hang on. The long term has come round. The long term on fuel poverty, I was working on fuel poverty in the 1990s. The long term has come round on fuel poverty. If we'd insulated the homes 20 years ago, we wouldn't be dealing with the problem now. The food issue is not a new issue. The price of food issue, the price of energy is not a new issue. It's the inaction. So don't talk to me about the long term. We have to help people see pathways to quicker resolution. It's not instant, it's not magic, it's not silver bullet, but it will get you there quicker than the way things have been done before. You make it tangible, you make it accessible, you make it relevant, and you make the link. So what is the link for people living in St John's to a river over there? There are lots of links. I might have to work on some with you, but there are loads. Yeah? And we can point to stuff now. We can actually take you there where you can see photos. If you open the leaflet that has Boris Johnson's the only person who's fallen in the river on one of our events. Not joking, absolutely true. You'll see some small sketches of Sutcliffe Park in Greenwich, and you'll see the before and after photos. If you went to Sutcliffe Park in the early 90s, it's on the inside, you would not have seen a river. because it was underground. Yeah? And it's been brought above ground, and Sutcliffe Park now acts as a flood storage area that keeps most of central Lewisham safe from flooding, or safer. It's not totally safe, but safer. Yeah? So it's like a natural reservoir upstream that anything downstream, Lee Green, the Lehigh Road, Central Lewisham, Clock Tower, police station, boom, much safer because of that intervention elsewhere. It's relevant. So you give people ways in as well. And again, this may seem obvious. Oh, what's the link? Well, make it relevant. We have to be better at finding the ways in and showing the links and making it relevant. Quickly, to expand on that point, so this is a terrible map. It's gone. But anyway, you get the sense that here's Deptford. This has got a light on it. There we go. There's Deptford. There's Bell Green. There's Grove Park. There's Blackheath. That's Central Lewisham. There's the Quaggy. There's the Ravensbourne. There's the Poole River. The reason I'm showing this blurry map is that we hold relationships with communities that otherwise would have nothing to do with each other. In fact, some of them look down on each other. Yeah, Orpington, nice, isn't it? Quaggy flows through Orpington. Pettswood. Do you think people in Pettswood think much of the people who live in random, the Lehigh Road? No. Do they have anything to do with each other? No. But they have a river in common. And what happens upstream affects people downstream. Now, the people upstream might not care about that, but we talk to them about that, and they go, oh yeah, all right, okay. So there are links, there are ways in. It's a slightly clearer map. So from the leafiest parts of, and one of the richest boroughs in London, to the mouth of the, so because the Ravensbourne, sorry if I'm telling you stuff you know, the Ravensbourne and the Quaggy meet in central Lewisham, and they go down to Deptford Creek where it enters the Thames and goes into the world. So what we're doing, what we did as a group, is we understand the breadth, the geographical scope, or the relevance of the big picture, and we know the detail, the depth. So we can talk about everything to do with plastics, eels, flooding, you name it. We understand that, but we understand the relevance geographically and make it hyper-local as well. So we get the big picture, I hope, and we master the detail. And then we show people the way in and the doors to something that's tangible and doable. And I think it's also about part of building trust and cohesion is being reliable. And this is about doing the basics well all the time. So for me, and it could just be me, it is about making sure we have regular meetings. We've got really good agendas, we've got really good speaker meetings, we do our AGM, we do everything properly, because unless I can prove to other people that we were a well-run group, why would they come? So doing the basics well all the time matters. Okay, what all this boils down to, because I was saying, well, okay, that's a lot of words, Paul. What does that actually mean? And I thought, what we're actually trying to do is be generous. Yes, we're trying to restore rivers. Yes, we're trying to improve people's appreciation of the rivers. And then we're trying to get people to stop dropping litter because it causes blockages or plastic pollution or whatever. It's just dangerous, it's just unnecessary. But actually what we're doing is we're being generous to a whole bunch of people who we don't actually work with. They're not our clients. They don't need us for a service. They're not even our members. But we're being generous. And if you play on that, it kind of totally reframes what you're doing and why. It doesn't mean you totally change what you do and why, but it gives you a slightly different way of looking at what you're doing. And it helps, what we do is help build the resilience of others. I mean, the kind of rather bleak or kind of over-dramatic way, but it's not that over-dramatic because we're in a flood risk zone, right? Okay? And it's going to get worse, yeah? Because the projections are, and we need to stop putting everything in concrete, we need to depave, and we need to whatever, particularly, so let you into a little secret, I might have a plan to try and get the river exposed and renaturalised in front of Lewisham Police Station. because that would be a massive amount of depaving, because so much potential floodwater runs off that surface, and it washes stuff into the river, which is bad, and it also causes potential flood risk. So what we're doing is trying to show people the relevance of what we do to their life in a small way, and build that generosity across a wider landscape. The original title of this, why is he showing? This is the tunnel that leads into Chimbrook Meadows, if you've ever been there, and if you come in there, you'll see the river restored. 20 years ago, that was in October, and that was meant to be, the title of that was The Light at the End of the Tunnel. But then I said, oh no, let's talk about what is it that we're doing. If I can boil it down to the essence of what we're doing, it's to be generous. Okay. So being generous does not mean not having a focus. It's not so blurry that we don't have a focus. We know what we're doing. It just forced us to challenge ourselves and to go, okay, just a reset. We just reset this and understand it a bit more, and hopefully articulate it a bit better. Hopefully some of this makes sense. And I think it helps underpin what we do. It makes us more relevant, builds the links, helps us convey those messages, and get a bit more buy-in. We were locked into a system where we were dependent on local councils, the Environment Agency, bit of funding potentially. The money to do proper river restoration just dried up. Pun intended, yeah? So we just said, we'll just start doing it ourselves. So we've got a project which is the next big restoration of the Quaggy, and we just started talking about it and hyping it, and people go, that'd be a really great idea. We just said, and people said, yeah, that's really good. And then we said, well, look at the benefits, and took them on walks and showed them where it could be, and they go, oh, that's really nice, I've never been there. Oh, look, there's a kingfisher. People got excited, and suddenly the Environment Agency said, oh, we'll give you some money, because we like it. And yes, we did a bit of subterfuge by official purposes. We had to fill in spreadsheets, all that kind of malarkey. And we just said, we're not going to wait to get the funding. I even work with people who say, don't call me a volunteer because it's a dirty word. This is just what I do, and I totally get that. So the formal voluntary sector likes to call itself the voluntary sector. We have volunteers, and we have a volunteer manager to sort out the volunteers. And loads of others just say, well, I just live it. Well, it's what I do. I don't suppose I really thought I was a volunteer. What are you doing in the river, mate? Oh, I'm in the river. Why are you doing that then? Are you from the environment? No, I'm from... And we need the different skills and abilities to find the solutions. We have the solutions, we know what works, but there's always a slow track for what works and a fast track for the rubbish. And this is an example of the restoration of Chimbrook Meadows. Children playing safely in a river, not drowning. Parents don't have to worry. I think borough culture has reminded the council, I think it knew this, but it needed reminding, just as sometimes we need to remind ourselves, that actually there's so much amazing stuff going on. And a lot of organisations or individuals or groups or unaligned groups or collegiate groups are filling the gaps. They're not new gaps, they're not gaps that are filled by, that suddenly emerged because of COVID. I think they existed before, they've just got bigger. That safety now has been stretched. But, there's loads of people who step back. It's the apathy point, but from an official perspective. And I think they're trying to work out, wow, how do we make the most of this, particularly with the cuts, which are getting worse for this borough, for various reasons. I think they're also trying to think, how do we get better at what we do? Because councils do tend to work in silos or linear ways. Not always, they can be quite imaginative sometimes, but I think they're trying to really work us on how to do better join up, and I think we can help them to do that. Not because I expect the council to make everything easier, but it does help if they get it right. And I think there's a real opportunity to find new ways of doing things. Formal ways of doing things and consultations and whatever have a role, but I think there are new ways of doing things, and if you can spot the deliberate typo, there we go, there's no substitute for imaginative follow-through. How to break free from these ways that tend to co-opt or thwart, and how to focus on building support, goodwill and trust. because community means together in trust. So, some opportunities for the local council and others, I would say, to relearn what it takes to actually work better with communities. So listening skills, co-planning, co-creation, all of that. Convening the sector. The convening role of a local authority can be almost all you need sometimes. Yeah, bringing people together across different skills, like interests and locations. I also think focusing away from just short-term initiatives to long-term. Oh, I use the word long-term, but you know what I mean. Sustained. Not here today, gone tomorrow initiatives. Here's another thing. Oh, what's that about? Oh, pop up. You know, here's some money. Go and do some litter picks. No. We don't do litter picks anymore. It's a waste of our time. It makes other people feel good. Doesn't solve the problem. We don't do that. We'll help you do a litter pick, but we won't do it. We're focusing on other stuff. Yeah? And then we'll help those people understand why we don't do litter picks. And that's us being generous. Yeah, and they go, you're weird, aren't you? We're used to that. Ray said it's not always about the money. A little bit of money helps sometimes, can make a big difference, but you still need the other things to make it work. You can't spend the money if you haven't got the infrastructure to back it up. So looking beyond the money at the convening power and the other means local authorities can achieve change. I had a meeting with the new councillor, I think Louise Kropski was here on the trees event, wasn't she?
She was meant to be.
Oh, she didn't make it. Okay. I was due to be here as well, and I couldn't make it either in the end. But we had a meeting with her last week, and she said, "Well, you know, we haven't got much money." And I said, "I don't want you for money." She looked confused. I said, "You've got it within your means, your general ways of working to achieve things that would make a big difference to all of what we're doing." I was telling her to be generous. She was expecting me to ask for money. I said, "I'll take some money if you want to give it to us, but I'm actually not asking for that." Yeah? She got it. I think she got it. Okay, so real opportunity for councils and others, and let's not just pin it on councils, to redefine partnership. That P word is always used, it's misused. They need to give up power. You could define how that you like. They need to be a bit more trusting, to give that up a bit more. They need to hand over more control. We can also take that control. You know, we don't have to always just wait for the power. So doing stuff and showing the relevance. They need to work across portfolios better because councils work in silos beautifully. And then within this, the stuff that falls between the gaps is, you know, stunning. But there is the space to fill. That is the space that I think we as community groups fill all the time. And no one realises it, but I think we need to be better at articulating that that's what we're doing. And I think convening and building capacity across interests and locations, showing you're relevant across an area and across interests, and to be more enabling. So some of these words, I'm not going to bother unpack. You can make of them what you will. And I also think that it's good. I chaired an organisation until last year, but I'm still involved, but I don't have the executive power anymore, called the London National Park City, which you may have heard of. We did a proper map of what London really looks like, actually, if you want to see it. Not a Google map, not an audio survey map, but this is what London really looks like. And we always asked, what if? And then we said, why not? And we were always focusing on the positive. We know all the problems, we know those occupy 90% of our time, but we said, what if this happened, and what if we had more green space on our doorstep within 5 yards, or what if the litter wasn't dropped? And then if you force yourself to say what if, and then you say, and why not, you immediately focus on how things can be. It's a slight psychological shift from only focusing on the problem. It's not that you ignore the problem, but you get into a slightly different mind shift or way of thinking. And I find it helps refocus, because you know the issues, you know the problems, but you define them in a slightly different way, and you focus on solutions and convening people and showing what's doable, and you show your relevance, and you build and create momentum. And this is why a fairly poor part of London, this is actually in Lambeth, has got a wildflower meadow. I could have put lots of examples up there. Why would a really poor estate in Lambeth have a wildflower meadow? Is that what they really need? Well, actually, yeah, it was. Lastly, apparently the lead character has everyone watched it? Yeah. The lead character is called Catherine Cathwood. She looks terribly oppressed, even though she's a policewoman. Anyway, I'm sure that works. The point about her is that she did her job in this kind of filling the gaps way. Everyone else just did the job in a certain way. She did it, they did, oh, that's not my responsibility. And she solved the problems, and probably solved her own problems, by filling the gaps, yeah? And doing the stuff that others ignored, and that's how she coped. So, I don't know if you take anything from any of that. And you probably, if you came here wanting a lecture on rivers, I'm sorry to disappoint you. But hopefully some of that sticks and makes sense, and thanks for listening.